everyone. My name is Arpita Sharma, and I am a researcher, artist, and filmmaker living in Los Angeles, California.
Hi, my name is Manu Multani, and I am a PhD student in anthropology and social change, and I am also a filmmaker, and I also live in Los Angeles, California.
And we are the co-founders of Rethink Daisy, which is all about providing new perspectives on our experiences in the Desi community locally and globally. And we're really hoping to decolonize our minds and
build community and sort of share our stories and really talk about sort of what does it mean to constantly have to challenge the things that we grew up with that just don't make sense. And we wanted to do a reframe series because we feel like it's reframing some of our struggles. And so today's topic is hovering around sexuality and what does it mean to have a relationship with our body and our position in society and how sort of we receive compliments, don't receive compliments, how do we actually handle that? And I think my perspective will be specifically as a cisgender woman growing up in California.
And my perspective will also be of a cisgendered woman growing up in California, but having been born in India and immigrated here. So we're going to start off with the first question, which is, have you ever been judged for your appearance?
Yeah, all the time, constantly. I think it's also not just like social judgment, but I also think it's like sort of self-imposed judgment because you think you need to fit a certain social norm that's then enforced through the social judgment. But yeah, I think growing up, it was also sort of not something that I think is encouraged of girls to like sort of have a relationship with their body. I think that's really changing now. But I think like I really just didn't have a connection with my body. You know, what about you?
I think I grew up similarly, so I was always like, I always felt like a geek growing up, and I think in middle school and high school particularly, because you don't really talk about appearance or are supposed to have a focus on that as a Desi woman. It was particularly hard in that way. Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's like super common too is that we're also then constantly being compared with other people, you know, and so it's like, oh, she's really skinny, why are you not skinny? Oh, she's like going to this school, why are you not going to this school, you know? Or she's achieving such and such thing, why are you not achieving such and such thing? And I think that comparative sort of way of thinking comes from a place of constantly being under-resourced and always trying to make things, I don't know, on the track of being more successful, for example. And I think that also then has to come with, oh yes, we all don't have like independent relationships with our bodies. We really have a function in society, and we need to just be like building our community, you know, versus like individually focusing on ourselves. So I think like the comparison and all of that sort of comes with that, I think, colonial idea that you really need to constantly be thinking about how to achieve something, because otherwise you're just gonna not be healthy or not be successful, and then that's not something, you know, you sort of can, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I think it's sort of like, you know, coming from an under-resourced mindset, essentially.
Yeah, and something else that I like, which kind of relates to that, is this idea of not feeling feminine enough. And I think that's something that as women we all struggle with, this notion of not feeling like we fit this stereotypical version of like that perfect full-figured body, and are the appropriate amount of modest with the appropriate amount of sexy. And it's so hard when you grow up in particularly as an immigrant, coming from a country which has one version of feminine and then are placed in an environment where another version of feminine is the correct version, to try and navigate between those types of spaces. Whereas like, in like middle school or high school, there may be women who are who like wearing like spaghetti straps might be the like an okay thing to do, or wearing shorts is like cool, and then you go home to an environment where those things are seen as very provocative. How do you balance the nuances within that?
How have you?
Well, I think I'm a particularly special case, because for me, growing up, I had a disabled brother, and so I was more focused on navigating those types of issues, and I didn't really, I just kind of was and existed, and also growing up as someone who was low income, not really like, just kind of going with like, okay, this is what is available to me and I'm just going to make it work, rather than kind of trying to construct an identity around these things.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point you make, because I think it's just sort of coming back to that idea, is that we live for our family, like we don't live individually with our own desires and our own needs and stuff. Our needs are all constructed around our family. Like everything gets informed that way, versus like, sure, you may have individual strengths and stuff that you bring to a family dynamic, but I think at the end of the day, we're always like, okay, what do I need to do to keep my family happy, and going and succeeding and healthy? And so if it's like, oh yeah, I need to look a particular way, it almost is like sort of a direct result in which like our communities think that's how it works, right? Is that you're a reflection of our family, and if you fit a certain norm or whatever, then you're actually putting up this facade that everything's really working well, right? And I think we're also to blame for that, because we harbor this like idea that we constantly need to look great,
Yeah. I also want to, because I think this idea of also being low income, I just want to like expand on that a little bit, because what is low income in the US is not the same as low income globally. Like, we weren't struggling to have like, clean drinking water or appropriate sanitation, but there is a relative feeling of having a lack of resources that exists within the US, which has more to do with like housing needs, or with being able to buy things relative to the buying power of other people, and putting food on the table and all those things.
Yeah.
The second question is, do you ever feel disconnected to your body and needs?
Do I ever feel disconnected to my body and my needs? Oh my gosh, yeah, constantly. I feel like it's like a evolution, right? Like it depends on the day. It depends on what's happening. It depends on how healthy I'm feeling, or how healthy my family is, or, like those sorts of things. But I think it's really difficult, because then for me, it's just been like, if I am feeling disconnected, in the beginning, I guess the disconnection was just so common and everlasting that I never realized that it was a disconnection. But now that, like, being sexually active and being in a marriage and like thinking about sort of what your needs and your desires are really made me like retune myself with my body.
Thank you for joining us for the first episode of the Reframe series. If you found this interesting to listen to, please give it a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more interesting content in the future. Thank you.